Good morning, everybody. My name is Viviana Gaballo. This presentation of mine is about how digital learning has been reshaping education in general, and especially language learning and teaching, to such an extent that even educational publishers are now offering language teachers integrated sets of digital tools capable of relieving them from the most demanding and time-consuming tasks. The case study presented draws on the English classes taught to BA students in economics in the past 2 years and analyzes the fully fledged platform provided by the publisher of the adopted textbook. Let's start by saying that in the context of digital language learning and teaching, greater emphasis has been placed on the learning half of the process. I'll try to restore the balance by focusing on the teaching half of the process. The first aspect I'd like to point out here is the difference in the way learners and teachers have access to technology in educational settings. Learners' access may take place in either or both of these two ways: learning from technology, which underlines the instrumental use of technology and the learner's relative passivity in the process, and learning with technology, which hints at a more active participation or interaction from the learners. Quite the opposite is the case with teachers. Teaching with technology generally implies an instrumental approach to the use of technology in language classes, while teaching from technology reflects the interactive, immersive experience of teaching from within a learning environment. A second aspect to consider is the following. Whether using online blended or class-based learning, teachers are faced with the challenge of combining a more informal learner-centered approach, giving learners control over their learning process, with the prevalent practices of teacher-centered modes based on set goals and standard forms of assessment. In order to balance learning autonomy, personal choice, and the affordances of LMS tools, teachers, as all the stakeholders in the learning process, need to master the complex triangulation made up by the pedagogical, methodological, and technological components. In this setting, moreover, we have recently witnessed the digital shift of educational publishers who have sort of reinvented themselves as educational technology providers. The shift from hard copies to software solutions has opened new possibilities, facilitating tech-savvy teachers' work while moving the most technophobic teachers out of their comfort zone. The purpose of this presentation is to analyze the interrelationships arising from these dimensions of innovation in language learning in order to contribute to the conceptual understandings that underpin university teaching approaches to technology integration. We've just mentioned the digital shift of educational publishers, the shift from hard copies to software solutions. But actually, this digital shift is of greater significance than it appears at first sight. As far as language learning is concerned, the burden of innovation is mostly relied on the goodwill of individual teachers who have decided, sometimes in perfect isolation, to take advantage of the new technologies made available. Although institutions have increasingly offered their support so that language teachers could integrate new technologies into their syllabi in a more organic way, for instance by making use of either open source or proprietary platforms installed in the institution's systems, the interaction between the container and the content has been left to the individual teacher's expertise until recently. The result is some sort of dissociative experience that can be placed on a continuum from total disconnection between the two, for instance, resulting from time scarcity due to increasing administrative burdens on teaching staff, to perfect integration at the cost of long hours and time-consuming activities that sometimes do not simply pay back for a number of reasons. Quite obviously, there are at least 256 shades of grey in between the two extremes, but all seem to be flawed by the same basic defect: design inconsistency. The issue needs to be addressed from a theoretical perspective first. Changing practices require thorough reconsideration of the nodes involved in the triangulation of pedagogy, methodology, and technology. For technology to be fully integrated in the teaching and learning system, it needs to be the mediating instrument for cognitive stimulation, skills development, ad hoc learning, and knowledge construction or co-construction. That is to say, it should take full account of the pedagogical and methodological instances and translate and incorporate them into the learning environment so as to achieve a seamless whole. In order to do that, drivers and enablers should be used that can trigger or facilitate a process of change intended to introduce a positive outcome in the system, in this case, technology integration in language classes. The drivers and enablers that educational publishers were used to employ until recently took only partial account of the pedagogical and methodological instances, and in the case of language textbook publisher, were mostly focused on technological tools, for instance CDs and DVDs, online quizzes, flashcards, that could serve as nice-to-have additions to the core paper offering. The digital turn forced many educational publishers to reinvent themselves as digital solutions providers. Some remodeled their portfolio of textbooks, creating personal online products to provide top-notch 21st century education for targeted learners. For instance, Macmillan Education's English language courses for young learners are accompanied by Nadio, a new digital platform that provides teachers with a seamless transition between the course book and digital teaching activities and makes learning more engaging with game-based language activities for young learners. I'll introduce a case studies on tertiary education in the next slides. As a result of the regular annual screening of useful updated resources for use in my courses, after reviewing and evaluating a number of textbooks, including the digital add-ons, I selected for the adoption in my courses of BA students in economics a textbook that particularly impressed me for being based on the latest research on business communication. The title of the selected resource is Business Communication in Person, in Print and Online, authored by Amy Newman and published by Cengage Learning in 2016, now in its 10th edition. The resource uses a realistic approach to communication with examples and situations demonstrating how principles work in the real world and covers the most important business communication concepts in detail, from traditional channels to technology-based media, from verbal to nonverbal communication, from oral to written communication, from ethical issues to intercultural communication, to help learners navigate complex relationships and use current sophisticated technologies to manage their online reputation, engage customers using social media, lead web meetings and conference calls, and more. In addition, there are also self-reflection questions throughout the book to help learners develop a deeper understanding of what they are learning through making new connections and relating different ideas. The pedagogical design of the resource relies on constructivist and sociocultural theories, has declined in the learning goals that are spelled out at the beginning of each chapter and throughout its sections next to the corresponding learning focus. To some extent, the virtual platform connected to the resource, formerly MindTap, now simply Cengage, is supported by the theories posited in 21st century learning. It covers the gap between the way in which students engage with new media and technology in their daily lives and the way in which learning practices rely mainly on print media. Cengage platform is far from being just a simple digital version of the textbook. It is specifically designed to be actively used and bring measurable teaching and learning results. It can also be used as a blended learning tool that can easily integrate with course materials, and its educational materials are accessible to users of all abilities. The available content authoring tools provide ready-made interactive activities, while the revision resources provide teachers with the support needed, allowing them to focus on student development. Teachers can personalize learning with instant feedback and bookmarking or commenting tools, and save time with the automated scoring, gradebook, and data reporting to check process quickly and easily. Another type of integration that can be achieved is with Blackboard or Canvas courses, on which links to the Cengage activities can be added. This provides learners with a seamless learning experience while they carry out their tasks on their institution's LMS. Cengage is also available for iOS or Android devices. I'm referring here to 2 courses given to BA students in economics in 2017-18, Ling 113, and 2018-19, Ling 115. Each was attended by more than 100 students, which required extra effort on my part in order to meet the students and my own expectations, considering that classes met for a total of 10 weeks, 40 hours for each course, and that the relevant syllabi also included short modules on English grammar and collocations. This paper will only reflect the module on business communication in which the resource under consideration was used. Cengage courses are structured as a sequence of activities, readings, media, homework, assessment, and other types of activities, and have many ready-made activities available to students, as you can see on the figure, which teachers may want to rearrange, hide, or select to count toward grades in order to support the course they are teaching. I have decided to stick to the publisher's suggestions during the first year of adoption of the e-textbook LMS, then opted to hide a couple of written activities the next year, as they were particularly difficult to administer to such huge cohorts of students. Altogether, Cengage offered for each chapter 3, sometimes 4 types of activities, but also various tools to create more. The first one is a practice quiz consisting of 15 multiple choice questions to get a quick check of students' understanding of chapter concepts. The second is an assignment consisting of a varying number of more complex multiple choice questions based on micro cases that require a longer decision-making process. The third is a video activity generally linked to external resources that requires students to analyze the situation at issue and respond to it by video recording themselves answering the questions, either directly on the Cengage platform or uploading the recorded file. A couple of chapters also included a writing activity requiring students to write different types of documents. I was able to grade and give feedback on spoken and written activities quickly and discreetly online. While assessment for the first 2 types of activities is automatically provided online, video activities have been graded according to their individual rubrics provided by the system. When needed, the gradebook was automatically populated with data from practice quizzes and assignments based on any other closed answer activity, while open answer activities were tagged as pending for assessment after students had submitted their answers. The gradebook system made students aware of their learning and kept them motivated. At the beginning of each class, I used to set a time limit for students to check in on their devices so that I could take their attendance effortlessly until the timer ran out. I was able to view, edit, and export or sync students' activity scores and calculated overall grades, as well as attendance records, I exported as a CSV file. Although the students' response system in Cengage Mobile is available for teachers to create and customize their own questions and answers, including polls, multiple choice or true-false, and results can be made to count towards students' grade if they are important as an activity, I prefer not to take this option because managing classes and performance assessment is much faster on a computer or laptop than it is on a smartphone. In Cengage Mobile, students were able to view activity statuses and details, read the textbook, view grades, review flashcards, and take practice quizzes for their Cengage course. While I used Cengage Mobile to view activity details, read the textbook, view students' grades, and take their attendance. Furthermore, I could use at a glance data and statistical reports to get a quick and easy overview of how the platform was being used. Based on current practices in the application of information and communication technologies in language education, we can now draw some conclusions out of the discussion and case study presented above. Firstly, the motivation for research and development around the concept of PLEs must be primarily pedagogical rather than technological, even though much of what it encompasses is related to or results from the development of ICTs. Combining the triangulation poles of pedagogy, methodology, and technology is a good premise for effective digital teaching and learning. Secondly, teaching from technology confirms itself as making the difference in improving our student learning skills, and it provides learners with a learning environment which departs from a formal teacher-centered approach and gives way to a more informal learner-centered approach. Thirdly, educational publishers need to rebuild their model of thinking from creating books to creating e-courses. Students need to focus and practice specific areas of challenge identified by formative assessment and reflection. That is what Cengage Learning has successfully achieved through their fully integrated virtual platform that facilitates task-based communication and interaction, and that also provides students with a flexible and convenient mobile learning and practice tool while relieving teachers from many of the most time-consuming activities, allowing them to focus on student development and bringing measurable teaching and learning results. Thank you for listening.